Messi. Messi. Oh, my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. Oh, that is extraordinary. What a head, son. What a head.
Back of the net.
Merry Wednesday, this is the Not a Pundit podcast, but you already know that. I'm Killeen Ginnity and I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by Nathan Byrne and Conor Glenn. And gentlemen, how are yous?
I tell you what, Newcastle are flying again. I cannot complain. We will probably touch on it later. It was a ropey little second half, but it's not often we get that amount of goals. So I am in flying form. Now, our red friend again. How are you, my man?
I'm great. One more week closer to the end of the season. So yeah, I'm doing well, lads. How are you, Killian?
Yeah, I'm all good. Sunderland had a game. Now, I think, Connor, you summed up the weekend's Premier League quite succinctly. And if you haven't seen our social medias, go and follow us at Not a Pundit Podcast. Well, that's the title race over with the Liverpool 2, Man City 0.
Yeah, it's hard to see past it at this point. You know, look, they deserve it. They're arguably the best team in Europe right now. Newcastle have them in the cup final. I'd be worried about how that's going to go for us. I'm not going to lie, I much would have rathered Spurs in that final. I think it would have been the final of desperation, or the desperation derby, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, no, you have to give it to Arne Slot. Like I said, when he came in, I didn't know much about him. Yes, he inherited a very good squad from Klopp, but I think he's had to handle a lot of politics. Like the contract situation for multiple players isn't easy to navigate. I know Salah's having a last dance level season, but I mean, even take him out, they're playing very well in every position. But yeah, I don't know about you boys, but look, here we are, tail end of Feb, and we're saying the league's gone, but it just is. I can't see it.
Nate, you got very hopeful after the Plymouth results. You thought Liverpool were going to wobble. What are you saying now?
My dead body is the league over, as Arteta said today. I love his enthusiasm. I think it is over personally now. If they slip up, it will be hilarious, and I pray that they do. But yeah, they're just the league has just been atrocious. I think quality wise this season, like it really has.
See, that's the thing. I think the league is over because of the weakness of other teams rather than the strength of Liverpool. Like, Liverpool have been very good, but like if Nottingham were a little bit better, they could have had a Leicester year this year.
But this also stinks of the last time Liverpool won it. There was an asterisk against that league title, and it was the COVID Cup, and I mean look, I think we're all sour grapes, to be honest. I look, it's been a poor season. I will agree with that in terms of the Man City capitulating hasn't helped the kind of levels of sexy football out there. But you can only beat who's in front of you, and they're beating everyone left and right.
The only thing is, like, Arsenal, like, they at one stage it seemed like they were going to actually give them a bit of a run in. When City were dropping off, Arsenal were kind of getting there, and then there was the big points difference. And now they're losing to the almighty Graham Potter's West Ham. Like, they didn't sign any strikers in January and then immediately lost Havertz for the rest of the season. Nate, they're the masters of their own capitulation here.
I know they're kicking themselves. They didn't get Evan Ferguson on loan that came on against them the weekend. That would have been nice. Yeah, like they didn't invest. It was the league was still there to be won, and if they did invest, they could have mounted a challenge. But to be honest, I'd be very frustrated if I was an Arsenal fan, and the league is in sight. Like, like going back to last week, and your board just chose not to invest. So I'd be really annoyed.
But it just makes no sense. It's like, even, you can say the Havertz injury was the straw that broke the camel's back, but to be honest with you, they shouldn't have put themselves in a position that they're that reliant on one person who isn't even, firing on all cylinders. And banging in goals left and right. Like there was enough talent out there to get. Like you look around, even outside of, I know they were linked with Ollie Watkins, and that probably would have gone through if the Duran transfer didn't happen. But I think you look at players like Osman who are available out there. Like, I mean, that name hasn't come into the equation. Like, I mean, it doesn't even need to be players on that level. Like, even if they wanted to invest in an extra body that could bring 3 or 4 goals. Like, they didn't have to spend 80 million. They didn't even spend 8. They spent nothing. Like, to not replace it just makes no business sense at all. And on Nate's point, like, it's almost worse being within touching distance of the league than being 100 miles away, because I really feel for Arsenal fans, because there was such potential there. I don't know about you, Killian, but like I cannot understand why they didn't invest.
Yeah, like when you like they've done it in the past with the likes of a Lacazette or an Aubameyang, where you kind of bring a player in, kind of going, okay,
Bring
there's a shelf.
someone,
Yeah, there's a shelf life here, and I'm okay with that. Whatever I'm putting in here, I'm not going to get back, but whatever performances I get out of it, that's all I'm expecting. I'm not expecting to turn a profit. Yeah, like it's just a little bit kind of I don't know, the arrogance of Arteta has got to me this year. Like, he has bought into his own hype, majorly so, and seems to not want to take any of the burden of the bad results. Like, they had the chances and they didn't take them. On a weekend where they should have been taking West Ham and really shortening that gap towards Liverpool, they didn't do it. It's not like, and to the point of the recruitment, it's not like they were banging in goals before January either. It was obvious that there was,
from the summer, they needed to bring someone
yeah,
in.
there was always a space for some form of goal scorer. Like, they should have kept Nketiah now in retrospect, because at least it would have given them something. And that was one of the things, as we discussed last week, having that something different is so crucial in football, and especially now that you just can't rely on having a Havertz who's not a striker, Jesus who's not a striker anymore. He's more of a winger because of what City did with him, and he physically is just not up to being a front man in a Premier League side. Does it put question marks over Arteta's long-term position in Arsenal, Nate?
Yeah, like, I'll be honest, lads, the Hazard thing is 100% just an excuse. Like, genuinely, them having no strikers is just an excuse. We're talking about a team that went 10 or 11 games in a row winning by headers. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so let's not act like he was banging in the goals beforehand and he's such a huge miss. I think Arteta has been a spoofer since day one, personally. Um, like, we're talking about a lad that hasn't won a trophy in, what, 5 years?
Well, it's not too long ago we were comparing him to our good old friend Gareth Southgate, and he's the Premier League equivalent of Southgate. All talk, no action, no trophies.
Oh, he's better than Southgate. Like, at least
Well,
he has
like,
some kind of coaching.
That's the thing, is he's looked good in the documentaries, but it hasn't really transferred over to the pitch, has it? So, like, as I said, and I hate to bring up Eric Ten Hag again, but he won 2 trophies in the same period that Arteta didn't. So leave that there for you,
Well,
boys.
the other thing that I suppose hasn't really been talked about is Edu departing is a major part of this. Like, I do think if Edu was still there, they probably would have brought someone in. Like, they didn't even need to full time sign someone. Just bring in someone on loan that can bring a couple of goals to the table. Like, you're not looking for an Isak or a Haaland here. Like, I mean, it just defies belief that I don't even know, is it arrogance or were they just so caught up in looking at the league that they just panicked. You know what I mean? Because I know their ownership aren't exactly the biggest spenders, and probably were like, look, this is the level we're giving commercially, and what they didn't feel like it was worth bringing in that player. But to me, I think anyone would have helped the situation.
Not the biggest spenders. How much did they spend on Rice?
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Look, they got a return on that investment, but like,
yeah. Historically, though, they don't
But they went out and bought Havertz, and they went out and bought Jesus. Like, Arteta's been backed. Like,
Yeah.
and the thing is now he's 6 years in the job. This is his team, and it's his team that he put together of bottle jobs. They're all bottle jobs. Season after season, as soon as things start to get a little bit hot and heavy, and you might get excited, bottle it. They are probably worse than Tottenham for
Oh
bottling.
no, no!
I don't know about that.
Come
But
on now.
the
No,
thing is,
Tottenham have done it for longer, but Arsenal, realistically, have been stronger every time they've bottled it.
But
but the thing,
you put Arteta's Arsenal in any other league, and you'd be like, God, they're so consistently, successful. Yeah, they're not winning the major trophy. I do think there's a bit of the Premier League microscope on this. Like, if the,
This was
do
a
we-
year to win, and they didn't do it.
well, they're just waiting for the next. They're waiting for the next ball. Puma have a new football in the Premier League next year. Arteta will be fine.
but like the thing is, like, if you look at their squad, they don't have depth across the board. Like, they've spent a lot of money and they haven't really strengthened where they need to. Like, when you look at both their backup fullbacks, they're both natural centre backs, which doesn't really suit the system in my opinion. And then when you go into midfield, like, they're buying like an agent Jorginho, they bought Marino from Sociedad. It's like it's a very agent side in my opinion.
Plus, Moreno is not as good as all the Arsenal fans keep trying to make him out to be on Twitter. He's a grand player. He's not the second coming or anything. Like, I think they're trying to seek out positives when there is none, just because it's a reasonable performance.
Sounds like United fans.
I think
We're fed up with doing that.
yeah. But like the other kind of big team in this equation that needs to be mentioned again is City. I know Pep has had the extension, Connor, but it can't keep going like this, can it?
I mean, I think the thing that summed up the City game for me was that De Bruyne shot that went out by the corner flag. Like, there is so much wrong with that club. Like, I do think, look, it's a case of Pep is going through his own personal issues, which we won't touch on, but like, he's got other things going on in his life. You do wonder, is he distracted? From a player personnel perspective, they have played so many games over the last 3, 4, 5 years that I do wonder, is it catching up to them? You look at players like De Bruyne, where I think the reason he is falling off a cliff so much is that he's arguably played an extra season worth of games in there compared to other players, and that's happened multiple points in his career. So I do think they're almost a victim of their success, in the way that you see it sometimes, like players that burst onto the scene, 15, 16, by their late 20s, they're done because they've played so much football in that time that would be normally in a full career. So I think it's a mixture of things. Look, City are by no means dead. They're having an off year. Look at the players that they still have. There's some incredible talents there. They still have one of the best strikers in the world, and they have the Ballon d'Or winning midfielder. I wouldn't be crying too hard for them, but I think it's just incredible to see the drop off.
Nate, you'd be really worried where they'd be if Haaland wasn't there, because like, yeah, there's lots of big names in that side, but there's a lot of players I'd be getting rid of if I could.
Yeah, but to be honest, Haaland hasn't even been great. I personally think their downfall needs to be studied badly because it's like they've gone off the cliff. It's I don't understand it. Like, watching them, they've just reverted from everything that they usually are. Like, I've always referred to City as a very boring team to watch. As you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get the square passes. You're gonna get the little movements, the triangles. All that's gone. Like where is it gone? And it's baffling to me. And they don't seem to even try to get it back. I wonder, is Haaland maybe a bit? Is he part of the issue in terms of trying to feed goals into him?
As in, they're two kind of playing one way, like their only way to score is get the ball to Haaland.
Well, like, yeah, is that what they're trying to do? Is like, can they fit him in that system that they're so used to? Because like, we haven't seen that for months now, have we?
It's like what
he's
I
still
used to
racking up
say
big
about
numbers,
Ronaldo.
though.
It's like what I used to say about Ronaldo was like, to make him work, do you end up having to give up a lot more? And maybe Haaland is that same kind of thing. That he's such, like, when he arrived in, and he is like a goal scoring freak, but he was also such a like he was the opposite of what they had before. Like they were used to having like Aguero, smaller, defter, more technical, and then you just have this big galloping galoot up top, and it does become a little bit of get it to him and let him do whatever needs to be done. Um, Plus, Connor, I know you touched on like Pep's kind of potential for being distracted. You'd wonder about the coaching staff and the relationship with the players, because it seems like some of these players are bereft of confidence, and when these, it seems like a lot of them, say like a Grealish, yeah, they have an ego, but it's an ego that needs to be stroked and it needs to be kind of mollycoddled and minded, and without that, they just seem to be lost.
Well, I think Fergie was a master of it. You hear any of his ex players, he didn't treat one of them the same. And as annoying as that can be, for the likes of Cantona getting away with things that a Gary Neville never would, it's what needs to happen. And I do think you're right in the fact that there does seem a clinicalness, if that's even a word, to this City team and the management around it. Of they expect greatness. They're paid unbelievable amounts of money. They're brought in for unbelievable amounts of money, and the output is expected. I do think, though, that I think maybe from a player perspective more than managers, I just think it's also a case that they're not used to being in this position and they don't know how to deal with it. I think the coaches have been longer in the tooth and around other teams that haven't exactly been Man City, so they've seen this, so they should be doing a better job. And for all we know, they are doing that kind of mollycoddling. But I do think it's a case of, look, we're talking about the 1% of the 1% of players here. Yes, there's deadwood that needs to go, but a lot of these players have never been in this situation, or if they have been, it's so long ago they don't even remember how to get out of it.
One of the things, Nate, that like part of the reason why I don't kind of buy any City excuses is, one, the money they've spent, but also like when you look at the players that come from their academy and the amount of good players you would presume are coming through, and they're not getting the chance. Like, at what stage do you just turn around to the manager and go, listen, we've, after spending hundreds of millions, if not a billion, on your squad, we spent hundreds of millions on an academy that has proven time and time again now to bring out amazing players. Why aren't you using them to get yourself out of this rut?
Yeah, and personally, I don't think the City Academy was ever created to do that in terms of bringing through the players. Like, when you see how open they have to selling players, is you have to wonder, was it more of an FFP type of play back in the day? How City had it, or how Chelsea had it, where they bring through a lot of players, but most of them will go out on loan or be sold. That's how I see their academy. Like, very few players have made it through that City Academy. Like, you're talking like a handful.
But it's still an asset and a like an area that they should be delving into. When nothing else is working, you might as well try it. Like, United have done it anytime there's been an issue. You kind of try some players, and sometimes you get a Kobe Manu, and sometimes you get a Fosu Mensah, and like you kind of work your way through that. And City just don't seem to be like, I know they've brought through really this season Rico Lewis, but like there'll be a whole other bunch of players that aren't going to get the chance when they could be. They can't be any worse than Gundogan.
Well, I think there's a couple of things just on that for me, is that, like, you do forget that most players take, even if they're in the City system, it takes them like a solid season to understand the first team system. So even if they bring through these players that they've identified, they're still going to have the learning curve of first team Pep football.
Yeah, but there's also like going to be like the academy is around and based around Pep's philosophies for about a decade now. So like they're it's now the City way, like the Ajax way. Like these players are borderline bred on it. Like, so I just think there's so few excuses, and um either by charges or by Pep taking the initiative, something's got to give for that club to kind of come back.
I don't know about you, Nate, but I think he's got enough cash in the bank that he can choose when to walk. I don't. I really don't think that City board have the balls to cut him loose.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't see him wanting to stay there much longer
With
with
that, yeah,
Shaw.
that's a whole different thing. But in terms of like the actual board snipping him at the legs, do you think there's a world in which it happens?
No. No, I think he's done too much for the club, and I think like in terms of how it would look, it'd be a disaster because they've just handed him a new deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think they can sack him, but there could be a deal done behind the scenes. Kind of go,
Any other
listen.
team though, if you have the record that they have this season, you would be so gone. Like you would be a distant memory.
Oh yeah, like this. This is what I mean. Is I think if he does, if and when he does go, it'll be Pep's decision. But whether there's an elbow put on the back of his neck to do so will be remain to be seen. Um, but from the kind of upper end of the table and Liverpool's kind of title destination now to literally the other end, Connor. Could Southampton break the Derby 15-point record?
Oh,
Was it 15 points or 11 points?
I think it was 11.
Oof.
It was dire, and the two of their wins that season were against us. So bad memories. Look, I like Southampton as a club. I always have. I really hope they get past that, because that's something that sticks with you for a long, long time. They're not too far off it. There's a long while left in the season. I think they'll be okay. What are you saying?
Oof. I don't know. They're on 9 points now. The record is 11.
They just need two draws, like,
Well, they
or three. Sorry.
They lost 4-0 to Brighton. They're losing 3-0 to Chelsea. Nate, do you see them getting a win by the end of the year, end of the season?
Do they still have to play us? That's the real question. No, they've got. Yeah, I see them getting to the 11. I do.
I even leveling the record is terrible. They like, surely, lads, they can get.
I think they'll win a game by the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, they're one of them teams. Like, obviously, they're one of them teams that I don't think anybody particularly hates. They're geographically they're so far away. The only other people that hate them are Portsmouth. Like, so they're not they're easy to kind of like. And for the last while, they've been yet again going back on like a youth investment and a youth vibe for their signings, and it just hasn't worked. And if they do get more than the 11 points, I think they'll be doing well to get the 11. But if they get more than the 11 points, they still have to go down as one of the worst sides. And the players don't really deserve it, if you know what I mean. Like, they actually have decent players. And it might be the best worst side the Premier League has seen.
Well, it's hard, like, again, we're in that discussion where the three teams that came up are likely going down. Like, it's getting boring at this point. Like, we've talked about it enough times that the gap between the newcomers to the league and the existing teams is just so big. And like, there's not enough money that can close that gap within the FFP PSO world. So like, it's almost nailed on of whoever the hell comes up next year. Maybe it's Sunderland, we shall see. But I'd say they're odds on to go back down. Any of the three teams that come up, it's yeah. I don't know. I think there's a bigger problem there.
What do you think, Nate, in terms of like the promoted sides? Do you think it is becoming an unbreakable cycle of this up and down?
To be honest, I think it's a bit hard to determine just purely because some of the lower teams are outperforming where they usually are, and then some of the bigger teams are way lower than they usually are. I think in terms of where is the gap too big? I don't think so. Like, I think you can still bridge that gap, and I think a few teams in recent seasons have shown that. Um, I think a lot of it is just to do with squad building on the way up, and
Planning
can
for
you
that
get that
future.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think Luton were probably as close as could have been. They really gave it a good go, and yeah, it wasn't enough. But uh, I just I'm getting sick of it, lads. It. You want to see the teams that come up be successful. Not that I want. Not that there's certain clubs I want relegated from the Premier League, but it's yeah. Like I kind of miss the bit more of a merry-go-round of yesteryear where you didn't really know who was going to stay up and go down. Well, nowadays it's just like pretty nailed on that it's going to be each year.
Do you think Leeds could stay up next year?
I don't know. Like it really is about recruitment.
But like, I think they have the money now, and like, obviously, they have that kind of pseudo deal with Red Bull and stuff. That I don't know. I think if all three sides go down this season, and obviously United could still change that, um, I think we might see that cycle to be broken. But Connor, Newcastle, as you mentioned at the top, it was a good result against a very good Forest team, 4-3. Are you confident now about a Champions League push?
I don't really know still. I know it's the most fence sitting answer, but yeah, we won the game and it was great to see that fight back when we went 1-0 down to come back with 4 goals straight in the bounds. But I mean, that second half we were leaking goals and they were not scoring good goals. They were defensive errors, and I think that eye off the ball is the kind of thing that stops you from going back to the top four. Also, this sounds insane, I know, because everyone wants to be in the Champions League, and when we were in it, it was really exciting. But like that really affected us as a team. I don't know if we have the depth to do that, and if we are to get to the Champions League, which again, obviously, I want us to, but we really would need to invest, and I don't think we're in an FFP position to invest to have us in the point where the depth is good enough to compete in the Champions League without ruining our domestic season next year.
Question: when will Newcastle be in a position to invest? Like, what is the
Well,
parameter?
this is what I mean. Like,
Like where is it? Like, that's all I've been hearing for 3 seasons.
basically the only way we can invest is if we sell someone and use the exact same money plus maybe 10 million. So it's like we're just selling someone like an Isak who we cannot replace to find someone who's not as good. Like even with the stats, like Isak over the weekend got his 50th goal, and he's had 50 goals in 75 games. Like that is unbelievable for the price we got him at. But like if we sell that, there is not a world in which we can afford a player with those numbers. So we're just downgrading. Like this is like I know for anyone who didn't hear it, go back a few episodes for a good old family feud between me and the boys on all things FFP, and you'll know where I stand. But it's just lunacy to me that like I know Killian's going to say run your club better, other teams do it, and I know, but like
But like, I don't understand where the line is for them to like be able to invest more money. Like, it seems to always be like it seems like there needs to be dodgy deals going on with youth players to even get the money to buy
well,
players.
like the Elliot Anderson transfer, like that. You look at, or even Longstaff going out, potentially other players too. Like I mean, it's what annoys me, right? Is I know the inference around Sella as a sponsor. There is the scandal around that and the conspiracy theories around that. And our sponsorship, they offered us 35 million a year, and we had to take 25 million a year because that's what the adjudicators thought was fair. I don't understand that. Like, it's not like they were looking to give us 100 million a year. Like, like if United can bring in those numbers, why can't we?
Because you aren't that big of a club.
But like,
No, but the thing is, like, at the end of this year, you might justify a 45 million if you get Champions League. It's like it has to be a sustainable growth, and if like let's also be frank.
The accountant's back in the chat now. He's got his suit
No,
on.
like I just think it's a broken system in terms of like there doesn't seem to be an opportunity for Newcastle to upgrade their team.
Like we
it
like,
doesn't,
and
it
if
doesn't
if
seem
we
to
do,
exist.
if we do, it'll be one player, and that is not upgrading your team. You know what I mean? That's bringing in one good player.
No, but like you. So I know you said that the investment for Isak was small in comparison to what the output he gave.
Yeah.
But it was still what, 60 mil?
Yeah, but I mean,
Like that's still bonkers money. So like,
but for a player who
if
bangs in 50 goals, to replace 50 goals in 75 games, you are going to need 100 million.
not necessarily. Like if you had better scouting infrastructure yourselves, sell him for 100 million. You have an additional 45 million odd to invest off of that deal alone. Split that between two young players. What's wrong with that?
A Champions League club shouldn't have to operate like
Well,
Brighton
you
to be
aren't Champions
successful.
League just yet.
Well, we were, and we may be
Well,
again.
they were playing Champions League football.
Yeah, like we're touch and go. If Forest would just fuck off, we'd be fine. But they're having the season of
Like
their
yeah,
lives.
look at Forest. He's had a perfectly good striker there that is wasted.
Don't even come at me with that. Every one of us thought he was a complete donkey, and he's just found some like Michael Jordan energy.
But like, if you weren't wasting money having the likes of Callum Wilson around and stuff now, like you can't just blame a system that you don't like when there's plenty that you should be taking ownership on and
Oh,
to
look,
actually like understand what's going on
we're
here.
far from perfect, but I just don't understand how United can. And this isn't taking aim at United. Insert any major club. I'm just picking United because they're lower in the table. But like their sponsorship deals aren't adjudicated to be unfair, even though they're placing lower than us.
Well, we all know why. Like, come on, we all know where Salah originates. Like, come on, I think there is a difference there. Like,
so we just need to get better at making shell companies from other
no, I just
countries.
think you need to get like a company that isn't
Dodge. Like
isn't owned by
Man
the.
United has 25 years of outselling you in jersey sales by a factor of 10. Has 20 odd years of Champions League. They have 20 odd years of selling every little bit of advertising that they can squeeze out of every nook and cranny of the stadium, club, and players. I wonder why it's adjudicated that they're going to get more.
Okay, so
Like,
with
come
that,
on, let's just be realistic and grown
with
up
that,
here, Connor.
okay, then why doesn't the PIF buy 30 million Newcastle jerseys, and therefore we can justify an income of jersey sales and therefore increase our available resources?
There's nothing to stop them from doing that. We've seen clubs open up jerseys and merchandise stores in other random countries that are uncheckable. Either you aren't clever, they aren't willing to invest in you, or they don't really care. Like, if they want to do that, they can, but then you're also in the same hand, and you said a couple of episodes ago, you don't want to get into the dodgy dealings and things. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it here, Connor.
Well, now I'm a couple of points off top four. I'll take your dirty games, okay? I want back in the top four desperately.
No, but genuinely, like you could be a whole lot more clever. Like, why weren't you over in America doing tours and stuff where you know that there's going to be advertisers that you could actually have a decent dealing with? And if you are going to do a backdoor deal, make sure you're washing the money first instead of having an obvious cover of Sella. Why aren't the Saudis going buying something that's going to be owned by Clearwater Capital?
Yeah, and just
make a deal with them over there in LA. You're going to run a film studio together, and happens to be that Clearwater Capital owns this thing like Snapdragon and is going to invest in the shirt sponsorship and saving sponsorship.
If we're going to play, we're already playing a somewhat. I'm not going to call it dirty game, a grey game, but we could definitely be more calculated about how grey we could go going forward.
See, I'm annoyed your dirty games aren't working. Like, I don't get it. Like, it doesn't add up. I'm annoyed because it fucks over my team as well. So, like, I don't know. It's a weird. I think, Killian, you have to admit that's a big flaw in the system currently. Is clubs
you're not going to get that suit off him. You'll have to saw them out of it.
Clubs can't upgrade their teams like naturally. Like, that's how it is.
No, well, part of the issue is the overinflated fees, and that issue behind that is the Premier League lost to run themselves, and its other leagues are not going to take less money from them. So either the Premier League needs to make better deals with one another and get a little bit more insular, or they just have to invest in themselves and have better academies. Like, it's one of the ways that City's been getting around it is by poaching younger players and bringing them through, not necessarily to their first team, but through their system. You look at Frimpong, Angelino, obviously Sancho, and like he's can turn money in that way. But also, if they were a little bit more sustainable, they'd be actually using them players themselves. Like, how can smaller teams have better development, better built squads, and ultimately, realistically, being able to spend as much, if not more, money than you
Because
guys?
you
It
know
sounds
why.
like a you problem.
You know why? You know why? Because it's set up to favour the smaller teams. That's how it's set up.
It is.
You
It,
say,
it just
but
is
your
like,
your question is how can smaller teams do this and that? It was set up
because
that
it's
way.
rigged for them. Yeah, like it's the
How,
whole
how is this?
point
How
of
is
the
it
thing.
favoring the smaller teams when the small teams that get promoted
Because it closes
can't
the
stay
gap.
up?
It closes the gap. That's how the system's made, to close the gap.
Like, I'm not saying, like, I know I said there the gap is massive from the new clubs that just came up. I'm saying the clubs that have managed to survive that original come up, it is built for them.
Like, you're acting like these smaller clubs aren't owned by billionaires as well. Like,
Yeah, it's not
if we're talking smaller clubs,
Dave
but
and
like
Terry from down the road. Like,
Yeah,
half the lower clubs in the Premier League can spend just as much as United could, but they're just not willing to because they don't have the revenue to back it up. So, like, to me, that's a fair game.
no, like, listen. Ultimately, this all comes down to you's ruined it. United and
No.
Chelsea ruined it.
Okay, Killian,
They
just
ruined the league.
a quick example, yeah. I own Crystal Palace, you own Manchester United, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're both billionaires, okay. We
good
can
Class
day
both
for the
fella.
boys.
we
Yeah.
can both spend as much as we want.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not going to spend as much as you if we can spend as much as we want? Just
Because
not,
like if I'm a billionaire, I'm going to be a lot more clever with my money. Why would I be just going
Oh,
and
don't be a boring
Answer, answer the
billionaire.
question. Answer the question.
but
Answer the
genuinely,
question. No. Just
no, but
answer the question. In terms of if you own Manchester United and I own Crystal Palace, and we both have the same amount of money, why are you going to spend more than me?
if like
Number one,
it depends on the
your
rules.
asset increases because you've got a bigger fan base. Number two, your revenues are bigger.
Thus,
Like,
your share price goes up, so your own value goes up. It,
Well, see,
like,
it
like
do you see
that's
why
another
this
thing that
is
you're
rigged?
forgetting. Not every club is floated.
But like, do you see why this is rigged towards the smaller teams? Is
No,
because they'll happily spend the lower budgets because they can spend that money, trust them, but they just don't get the same return as the bigger clubs. And to me, that's not a fair system.
no, but ultimately, there's the other thing as well. Is like use the big clubs, and this is goes for all is. Yous don't know, like, yous don't know how to spend money. Yous keep
Oh,
we're not
hand over
allowed to
fist.
spend the bloody
we
No,
can
thing.
spend our
no.
money how we want to spend our
When
money.
yous are spending money, yous are hand over fist. Yous are just lubing yourselves up and going, do you know what? Take all of my money on a player that's worth half of it. That
If
Man United tax is real.
if
And you know
I
what? Yous painted yourselves into that corner
if
and you deserve
if
it.
I want to spend 70 mil on Hoyle and they'll get me 2 goals, I can spend that. Like that's up to us to
And you
do that.
did.
And that,
Oh
but
my
that,
God, you
Yeah, and
that's his
did.
we did, but that's up to us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Let
now
us
you're
make that mistake.
and now you're hamstrung by that decision.
I'm
Oh
not
no,
buying into this.
consequences to your actions. Man
I'm not.
United have to have consequences for once in
if
their
I if I
bloody
want
lifetime.
if I want to give Benny McCarthy 70 million quid to come back and play for Newcastle, I should be able to.
No,
That is where I
no,
stand.
no. Don't forget the Premier League brought in these rules to make the Premier League better and much more sustainable. If you don't want to be part of the Premier
Oh,
League, you just go off and do your Super League and spend all your money.
it's
Don't
20.
bring the
It's
Super League back up. You know
it's
what this does to
20.
this pod.
It's 2025. Are we seriously not going to act like majority of clubs? To be honest, in the top two leagues aren't owned by billionaires. Are we
No,
just
no,
going to act like that?
they're owned by billionaires.
Okay,
But the
okay.
whole
So,
point
so,
of it
so
is to make the league sustainable.
this thing about we got to save clubs from themselves. I'm not buying that bullshit. They're owned by billionaires. They can be saved.
And it's also, if we're talking
Oh,
about
the billionaires that are
sustainability,
famously in for the long game, are they?
but if we're talking about sustainability, I'm not an investor in the team. I don't care if it's sustainable. I don't care if that billionaire loses his house. I want us to play good football with great players. They can figure out their own finances. I'm not looking for people to go broke here, but like these people aren't going to lose their lives.
You are. When you
No,
let them run wild, that's what happens. Look at Portsmouth. Look at Anzi Makalele when they had a billionaire oligarch come in, and they had Roberto Carlos. They had Gus
in a league that's Russian that no one cares about.
See, this is a slight issue.
That's not the point. That's not the point I'm making. What happened? He got sick. He decided no more money, and what happened? They went defunct 5 years later. When you are letting billionaires run the clubs that are meant to be the backbone of your league, you are at the will of grown children. And the Premier League have gone and decided to protect themselves. If they're not going to do 50+1, they're going to do this. Ultimately, these clubs need rules, and if you don't like them, go and do your Super League like you've just been dying to do.
This is the issue that I have, is why aren't we treating... Like, we all love football, yeah? 100%. We can buy
At this point, I'm starting to struggle with it. It's more accounting than anything.
Well, we need to treat football clubs as businesses. End of. Like, they
I
are
totally
businesses.
agree. Yeah.
Is at the end of the day, businesses need to run themselves. You know, they need to run themselves within their means, and that's up to the people that run that business. It's not up to the people that dictate the league that they're in, this, that, and the other.
Okay, if we're going to let them run...
Let me finish. In terms of businesses, though, everyone loves the money that's in football. Everyone loves what football is as a commodity, but we're all against letting clubs run themselves. Like, I don't understand it. It's so backwards to me.
Like, there's nothing stopping any Fortune 100, 500 company paying a CEO whatever they want. Like, that may be unsustainable, but have we seen any of those companies go bust in the last couple of years? No.
But they're also all floated. But, okay, let's treat them like businesses, okay? We're going to treat them like businesses, and they have a choice what stock exchange they want to deal in, yeah? Okay? Mm-hmm. Let's call that a league. And if you don't like how the league runs, and you don't like how that stock exchange rules happen, well, then don't be part of it.
If you say Super League one more bloody time.
Just keep saying it.
You know the difference, Killian, is the stock market isn't there to... confide people in a box on which they can operate. If the stock market can go as high as it wants, it can go as low as it wants.
If
you're going to use that logic,
if you sign up for these rules, and by going in, like if a stock exchange come up and says, you know what, cap everybody $1 million, there's nothing to stop you from not doing that. Like, you don't have to deal with that one. You don't have to deal with the Premier League. These rules are brought in, and if you don't like them, don't deal with them.
Give me a salary cap any day of the week. I am so in favour of a salary cap, but let me spend how much I want to recruit players.
But that makes no sense.
It's called free trade, Killian. It's literally called free trade. It's the open market. It's literally the open market.
No, but all you're calling for then is massive signing on fees. It's just going to change where the money is going. And
it works in the NFL. It works just fine.
Let's just run the MLS at this rate, yeah? Like,
no, you are the ones looking for the MLS.
No, we're not.
No, I'm looking for the NFL, mate.
Yeah, like you're literally looking for the American model. Massive signing on fees, caps on wages.
No, we're not.
Well, Connor is.
I am.
Connor literally.
I'm literally asking.
You're looking for free trade.
Open trade, free trade. Let the gates open. That's what I'm asking for.
Then go and make your Super League. Because ultimately, part of the reason why all this came in was to protect the clubs, not just from themselves, but from untoward owners when all the Americans started coming in.
When was the last time you saw a Premier League team go bust?
Portsmouth.
One.
No, they were the last one in the Premier League.
I know, but if we're talking about these rules that hamstring us...
No, let's not forget. It was a billionaire that brought Sunderland down to League One. It was rich people that brought Bolton and Blackburn down the leagues.
But every time we talk about this, it comes back to the owner's test. There is lunatic, shite businessmen out there who earn ungodly amounts of money, and I know we've touched on this 10 times.
Two of the biggest businessmen in America bought a club in the Premier League and ran it so badly they were chased out of it. Hicks and Gillette. Do you think they should have been?
I am a Manchester United fan, so I'm literally unbiased in this opinion that I'm about to give here, okay? If Why not let clubs be run as bad as they can or as good as they can? That is football. That is literally football.
No, like, don't forget, Nate. Your club is the reason for all of this.
Forget
why
look,
I
that's
don't buy
No,
it.
the
That's
Glazers
though.
deal. The Glazers deal is what ultimately painted out everybody into this corner,
And I'm the one defending it.
and the league has decided. The league has decided that they wanted to protect themselves, and if you don't like it, go and make a new one. Because don't
So
forget, that's how the Barclays Premier League started.
When-
They
when-
wanted more money.
Good boys,
when
you look non-league at this situation, right? There is nothing stopping, I don't know, a Woking type or a Newcastle Benfica paying a player 500 quid a week, and the rest of the team aren't paid. They're just amateurs, or if they bring in a bloke for $3,000 a week, they're allowed just pay players as much as they want. And yes, you can argue it's not sustainable, but
Yeah,
that's
tell
the
that to
game.
Glenn Tamplin and Billericay. Where is he now? He's literally on the run from prison.
Who?
Remember when Billericay was signing Jermaine Pennant and
Yeah.
Jamie O'Hara and Kevin Fulham? The owner who put himself in as manager, Glenn Tamplin, is on the run.
But that's life.
Yeah, there's businesses that fail. Like,
That's literally life.
And the National League has decided not to protect themselves from it. The
Okay, let me
Premier
ask
League
you this:
has.
when did Portsmouth go bust?
Portsmouth went bust in 09, 010, 11, and I think 12.
So it started in 09, did it? Is that when they went bust? Like,
post crash.
It was post the FA Cup win because that's when they had all the massive wages.
so we are approximately 15 years on,
And we're living under the cosh of one team.
We're deciding
No.
to tighten it even further. Like, why?
Why are we tightening it further? Because of City and because of Newcastle and all the dodgy owners coming in.
So you've just
And,
admitted that
and
we're doing
Chelsea
it to
and
close. We're doing it to close the gap.
No, we're doing it.
No, we're not doing it to protect. We're not doing it to protect clubs. You literally just said we're doing it because of City. We're doing it about Newcastle. So we're doing it to close the gap.
We're doing it for them, not to close the gap, but to
we
protect.
are.
Because when you're so
No.
dependent on some random, like, what is so wrong at saying
Those
to a
clubs
club?
don't need protecting. They don't. Like, they literally
They
don't.
do.
Like, they can pay off their own debts. Trust me. The thing here is
No, the ownership it can, and the thing about it is, like, look at Chelsea under Abramovich, all the money, and then suddenly it was gone because of things external to football.
it's being done to close the gap, in my opinion, and yeah, that's how I say it.
And you are entitled to be wrong, but one of the things you kind of didn't get wrong last week was Man United and Everton. You were actually you were very downbeat on it, and I don't think you probably should have been in the end. Although Amarin kind of had your same apathy towards his own team ahead of the game.
Fella, we were 2-0 down. I was on the ropes. Yeah, lucky Bruno free kick and then last minute screamer. So I'm not taking anything from that game. We are still shocking. We are terrible.
Do you think Amarin is right though to kind of be like talking up Moyes as much as he was ahead of it?
Yeah, I think Moyes has come in and done a great job. I think Moyes feels at home at Everton now. I think there's a bit more camaraderie around the club. I think they're excited to move stadium. It feels like a new start. And to be honest, I think Moyes is the perfect man to bring them into that new era.
I think it's nice for him as well to be, the last manager in Goodison. Like, he is a serious part of that club's history. I think Nate said it perfectly. It's just familiar to him in the best way. He's been on the road enough now with a couple of teams, and it's nice to just see him have a nice landing patch. And I think it's like we were saying last week. They're solid now. It's planned for next year.
How is the kind of general mood on Carrington? Obviously, more redundancies, less food, more fruit bowls.
Yeah, they're already getting sick of the soup. Yeah, I don't know. Like, to be honest, I'm not sure what's happening there with all the redundancies. Just seems to be more after another. I'd be a bit worried if there was that many redundant jobs in that place. Like, what's been going on for the last couple of years?
Well, I saw Simon Jordan talking about this as well. If you take out the fact that people are losing their livelihoods, there is a certain element of, is there that many people that, Radcliffe walked in and was like, what are we doing here?
Or is it a bit of a Musk and that kind of like when he walked into Twitter and then suddenly he's like, oh, that's what all them people did. Oh no, I didn't know that. And then suddenly you have to scramble and try and rehire people after the fact.
I just, again, though, like we said last week, at what point are they going to do something that has a positive PR spin to it, even just to manage the bad PR? It's like, I saw a stat during the last day or two, whenever this was announced. They spent, in the last 12 months, they spent 246 million on players, and the savings they're going to get from this, removing only allowing the first team have access to the canteen, they're saving £1 million a year. £1 million is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Like, the fact that Amarim, as first team manager, is entitled to soup and a sandwich when he earns £12 million a year is bonkers. I'm not, look, we all come from jobs where you bring your own lunch. It's not like it's abnormal.
I want to see a Man United cafeteria lineup of lunchboxes. I think that'd be hysterical.
Get the tin foil out, yeah.
Yeah. What do you have?
I just don't know what's going on. I think like he's clearly gone in with a business head on. Obviously there's been blowback from people that it's like, you know, it's never nice to see people lose their jobs, and especially how many people have done it. But there's clearly a reason behind why he's making these decisions.
Like,
otherwise, you're like,
any goodwill is going out the window. Like, you know.
But like, I'm getting the vibe he doesn't give a fuck about goodwill.
Oh, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Like, I think we can all agree on that. Like, he does not give a fuck about goodwill.
No.
It's just, what's his end goal now?
But it's unless it comes out in the pitch, though, because like, it's, sorry to talk over weekend, but it's like at every point it's like he's looking for a euro under the couch. Like, he cut Fergie off salary, he cut all the ambassadors down. You've now done 400 redundancies or something around that figure. You know, OAP subsidies gone, canteen subsidies gone. Like, if I'm a player, there is no part of me that wants to move to Man United. Take out your current form. It just seems like a shite place to work.
But I think there could be an overall bigger concern, which is like when you're so penny pinching in this way and you're very, very Excel focused, shall we say, that's what asset strippers do. Like, is he trying to ultimately turn this club around for sale? Like, he was coming in to be the be all and end all and the new regime. Is he actually bought in to try and get the Glazers out and so that he can turn a profit?
No, but ultimately he's done more damage than he's done. Like, we're worse on the pitch since he's come in. You know, we're losing assets, as you said. It's like,
no, but like, this is what asset strippers do when they're like,
Yeah,
they come in and they get a business.
You're gonna have to claw United out of the cold, dead hands of the Glazers. They are not going anywhere, son.
The way I see it is, he wants a lean machine that. Well, that's the goal. He's a fucking long way away from it, but he wants a lean machine.
You're lean anyway. You're not a machine.
Yeah. In terms of like penny pinching for like $1 million on the food, it's like he's a multi-billionaire. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's doing it for personal gain. I think there's a mission on it. I just would love to know what's going on in his brain.
Where's all the chat about a new stadium gone? Where is that currently? Is that even in the realms of happening?
I haven't heard about that in a while.
They got government funding. Basically, yeah. I think until they can offshore the actual cost of it, I don't think it's going to go ahead. So they have a government committed to a certain amount, and unless he can get a sponsorship for the rest of it,
so the Old Trafford waterfall will remain.
It's just, I don't know, like, because Connor, you might know this better than I do. Hasn't he done this kind of thing with like the cycling teams and stuff as well, where he's ruthless, like, squeezed everything out with them?
Well, you see, where it worked though is, you know, his other teams at all points, like, they're not all currently kind of in perfect form, but the results were, whether it was on the road and cycling or on the pitch and other teams, like it's worked before to a certain degree, but he's done it, I suppose, in a more phased approach, especially in the cycling realm. It wasn't as just nuclear option, scale back everything within, 9 months. So it just lacks, it lacks logic. But I think Nate's right in the fact that he doesn't give a fuck what people think. But there becomes a point where it's like, is he just wrong?
But is there a point where we go, oh, he's right in terms of...
Oh, there is. And if he turns it around...
like, is this what United needs? They need the guts taken out of them. Like, I don't know the answer to that.
Get Casemiro out of that club with Anthony, and I'll start bowing at his feet of how he's pulled that one off.
See, that's the thing when you have so much waste in the playing side that's so overly like offering so little and so overly paid. It's very hard to justify any kind of other cultures.
Try tell someone that's been working at Carrington for 30 years they're no longer able to get food in the canteen, but we'll pay Casemiro $350K a week. Like,
but it's not just that. It's also turning around. It's also turning around and saying, "Oh, this guy that's been at Old Trafford for 30 years, and you, the season ticket holder for 30 years, has seen him every weekend. He's gone because Casemiro wants a foot massage."
Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, the players need to step up here and pay for it. Like, in my opinion, it's nothing to them. It's like it's literally nothing to them. Like,
and if they did it, like, and fans would get on board.
To be fair play, and I'll give Bruno a little shout out, is it came out during the week that they cut the tickets to the FA Cup final last year, and he paid for a lot of tickets for family members of staff to go and this and that.
That's good.
So, like, he's stepping up in his captain role and showing a bit of leadership there. But I think if the players had their heads screwed on, they'd come together and foot that bill.
It's a great point.
Really good. And like I've been the first to criticize Bruno as captain, and that's a good thing to hear. But gentlemen, one thing that's not good here is it is the end of this week's.
It's good
episodes.
For my blood pressure.
my thanks to Connor and Nate as always. And before I go, I'll leave you with this little bit of advice: never ask somebody about politics, religion, or FFP. Chat to you next week.
Messi. Oh my goodness! Balotelli.